Hey everyone, welcome to Great Lakes Church. My name is Carson, and I gotta tell you before we get into our weekly message that we're a community of people helping people find and follow Jesus. We're based out of Southeast Wisconsin. We have physical locations in Kenosha and Racine, but if you're listening to this or watching this, you've found our online presence. We share content on our YouTube and our podcast platforms wherever you listen, and we love that you're a part. If you want to know more about what's going on here at Great Lakes Church, you can find out more at greatlakeschurch.com or check out our central hub. But until then, everything you need is going to be in the description, so enjoy the message, and we'll catch you next time.
Hello? Easter right around the corner. Take the invite card. Be thinking about someone who you can invite to one of our Easter services at Great Lakes Church this year. So a few weeks ago, we kicked off a teaching series called Foolproofing Your Life. And it's a series in which we are looking at some of the wisdom shared by King Solomon of Israel 3,000 years ago in a book he wrote called Proverbs. And of course, Proverbs are brief statements that express some sort of truth. We have lots of Proverbs in our culture. Proverbs like actions speak louder than words, yeah. Or where there's a will, there's a way, right? So Proverbs are short phrases about how life generally works. In other words, most of the time when you do this, here is what you can expect. Not all the time, but most of the time, here's how things are going to turn out. And one of the more well-known Proverbs in our culture is don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah, don't form an opinion. Don't make a judgment about someone or something just based on initial appearance. Well, back in 2015, Washington Post reporter Christopher Ingram wrote an article based on various data points and different research of more than 3,000 counties that exist here in the United States. And what he did based on this data is he ranked from number one to all through the more than 3,000 of these counties, the nicest places to live. And dead last in his ranking of counties was Red Lake County, Minnesota. And in his article, Christopher actually called this the absolute worst place to live in America. Well, he writes this article and he points out, does his different rankings, points out why this is not a place that you would want to live. And the article instantly took off like wildfire. And Christopher was inundated with comments and with pictures on social media from people living in Red Lake County and from different politicians in the state of Minnesota and from even a state senator in Minnesota. And they're saying, hey, it's not as bad as you make it to be. And his defense is he's like, I'm a data reporter. I do things like this all the time. I rank different states, different counties, different cities based on certain things. And everybody's at least somebody has to be at the bottom every time. And he says, of all the articles I've written, I never received such bad feedback as when I talked about Red Lake County. And he said, obviously, the people there were not happy. Well, eventually, there is a guy by the name of Jason who lives in Red Lake County. He reaches out to Christopher and says, hey, look, if you're going to talk about us and say all this bad stuff about us, you should really come to check it out for yourself. And so Christopher kind of does this debate. He talks to his editor, talks to his wife, and he finally decides he's going to do it. And he arrives to the county with all kinds of stereotypes in his mind, and he pulls up to the county courthouse where it was agreed that he was going to meet Jason, the guy who initially invited him. But not only was he met by Jason, he was met by the mayor, he was met by county commissioners, and he was met by a marching band. They decided they're going to make this a big deal. It says it was over the top, he said, but it really set the tone for the rest of the visit. And he said that what he had expected in his mind did not unfold the way that he had anticipated. He said these people had lots of pride in their community. And so after the trip, he flies back home to the Washington, D.C. area. He gets back to the chaos and busyness of his life. And in the weeks that followed, he started reflecting on how he was spending 15 plus hours a week commuting back and forth to work. He started thinking about how little time he had with his wife and kids just because of living in such a populated area and because of the kind of work he did. And he just decided, you cannot judge a book by its cover. Christopher and his wife decided to pack up everything they owned, and they moved to Red Lake County, Minnesota, which he had said was the worst place to live in America. And he intended to live there just for a year or two, but he still lives there to this day. And for the Ingrams, they say it was a wise decision because they had an idea of who they wanted to be and what they wanted their life to eventually look like. And so they made decisions that put them in that direction. That's what wise people do. They know that the decisions I'm making today have an impact on where my life is going tomorrow. Now, this is true in every arena of life, no doubt about it, right? It is true in every arena: marriage, finances, parenting, career. But where we see this play out in an exponential way, I mean, it's almost like a disproportional impact, is in the area of friendships. And so that's what I want to focus in on today: choosing friends wisely. I know, it's like, something my mom would talk about, right? It's like, I'm not in second grade anymore. Dave, we don't need you to talk to us. We're adults, but here is the deal, man. Friendships are way bigger of a thing than we can possibly realize. And in our culture, whenever we talk about choosing or selecting someone to be in our life, come on, most of the time, it's in the area of romantic relationships, right? Think about this. The different articles and tabloids that we read, right? When you start thinking about the different movies and shows on Netflix, when you think about all the songs that are released, there is a massive amount of content as it relates to romantic relationship, right? Who's sleeping with who's dating who likes who. There is very little content being written about friendships. And friendships are a big deal. In our adolescent years, it is our teachers and it is our parents who shape us in a pretty significant way. But after our adolescent years, it's our friends who are the primary people who shape us and mold us and make us who we are. So put another way, our friends determine the direction and quality of our life. This is a principle that we come back to every couple years around here. Our friends determine the direction and quality of our life. And so we need to choose our friends wisely. Sociologists tell us every year we're going to have somewhere between 500 and 2,500 different social interactions. Right? If you're an introvert, it's very likely that you probably are more towards the 500 social interactions. If you're an extrovert, you're probably at the end of like 2,500. And I know that there are extremes, right? If you're a Walmart greeter, you're from an Italian family, you are way off the charts in one direction. Right? There are others of you, it's like, man, guess what, Dave? I never leave my house. I DoorDash for every meal. And the only reason I'm a part of Great Lakes Church is because I can join you online. Right? And hello to all of you. And yes, not everybody is going to fit between 500 and 2,500, but you get the point. We have a lot of relationships to manage. And so it would be wise for us every so often just to pause. It'd be wise for us every so often just to consider who is in our circle of friends, because they are determining the direction and quality of our life. And it's possible, as we take time to evaluate, that we have some friends who we have ranked towards the bottom that we need to reconsider and move them more towards the top. And there are friends who are at the top of that list in our ranking, and they may need to be moved towards the bottom. King Solomon explains it this way. He said, "He who walks with the wise will become wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm." The implication is that if we walk with and surround ourselves with people who are wise, we will automatically, with no effort, no intention, not having to write anything down, we will automatically, over time, very likely become wise as well. If we're hanging out with people who are regularly making decisions today with tomorrow in mind, they're thinking about the future, they're looking at patterns and making decisions based on those patterns, it's very likely if these are the people we hang out with, that's how we're going to start to think. But Solomon also writes that the companion of fools suffers harm. You would think he'd write, well, the fool, if he walks with a fool, will become foolish. But he doesn't say that. He says they suffer harm. He says it's worse than just becoming foolish. If you surround yourself with or walk with or live with foolish people, if you do life regularly with people who behave as if all of their decisions are made in a bubble and the things they're doing today have no effect on their life tomorrow, the greater possibility and probability it is that you will suffer harm. Because when their life goes bad, your life goes bad. It's a proximity thing, right? The closer you are to them, the greater odds of something bad happening to you. And some of you know this because you grew up in a home where a parent would make a foolish decision. Foolish decision on how much they drank, foolish decision on how they did relationship, foolish decision on some sort of addictive lifestyle that they became part of. And you suffered the consequences. You received the shrapnel of their decisions. Solomon says when you hang out with foolish people, that's what's going to happen. It's why in his book Proverbs, he writes that the righteous choose their friends carefully. Now, a righteous person is a person of character. That's what he's referring to. He says a person of character. A person who is very concerned with their morals and with their ethics and who they're becoming, they're going to be selective in who they hang out with. They choose their friends wisely. Now, he's not talking about everybody we interact with and engage with, right? All the social interaction. Not talking about with everybody we would label as a coworker or as an acquaintance, or even that we would just say, hey, this is my buddy, this is my pal, this is my friend. He's talking about the people we spend the most time with. Because it is with our closest friends that we let our guards down. With our closest friends, we're way more vulnerable. Our closest friends get to determine the conversations that get most of our attention. Our closest friends just over time begin to impact and affect our attitudes and behaviors. They influence our thinking. They influence our worldview. Right? We know this because all sorts of studies and research has been done on this. And the studies reveal that upwards of 95% of who we are and where we end up in life is determined by the people we habitually spend time with. So King Solomon encourages us. He says, look straight ahead and fix your eyes on what lies before you. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Stay on the safe path. Don't get sidetracked. Keep your feet from following evil. Lots of different paths that we can go down in life. And if we're going to take a path that leads us to where we want to go and where we want our life to end up, we have to be intentional about surrounding ourselves with people who are moving in the same direction. Now, this is important. This means that we have to know where we're headed, right? This is what we talked about last week. In the key areas of our life, we should define what success looks like. What does it look like in parenting? What does it look like in marriage? What does it look like in finances? What does it look like in career? We've got to know what it looks like so we have a North Star. So we know that we're moving in a direction. Because when we know where we're headed, it's a lot more challenging. It becomes a lot easier to guard ourselves from being distracted or going down some sort of detour. Bottom line, we cannot be carefree with who we are spending the bulk of our time with. We have to be very, very discerning, right? We can't be naive. People who are naive, right? They start to trust everyone around them. They always believe the best in everyone. And then as a result, what often happens is they find themselves getting hurt because they have such a big heart. They open themselves up to everyone, and way too many people know things about them, and inevitably someone is going to say or do something that betrays trust, right? So we can't just be naive. When surrounding ourselves with friends, we have to be discerning. We can't be paranoid, right? People who are paranoid are people who are always fearful or suspicious of others, right? They don't trust anybody. Their big dream is to have a home out in the country where they're living off the grid, waiting for Armageddon. And their biggest concern is that they're going to run out of ammo someday, right? That's like the other extreme. So we don't want to be naive, nor do we want to be paranoid, but we do want to be very discerning. And discerning people are selective in who they hang out with. Discerning people have no problem treating people differently based on a variety of factors. Now, there is discomfort whenever we talk about treating people differently, and so I want to be super, super clear. Everyone is equal in the sight of God. Right? Everyone has equal value. Everyone has equal worth. But not everybody is equally safe. And not everyone is equally wise, and not everybody is equally helpful. And not everybody is equally life-giving. And so discerning people treat people differently, right, based on a variety of factors. Put another way, discerning people treat different people differently. I don't know how to select and how to, don't worry. People get to determine how we treat them based on how they behave. This doesn't have to be real complex. This doesn't have to have a bunch of filters. People get to determine how we treat them based on how they behave. And throughout his book, Solomon writes about different types of people, and he gives us wisdom on how to treat different types of people and how to interact with them. Right? One of the groups that Solomon writes about is people who are wise. And when it comes to wise people, Solomon advises us, he says, spend lots of time with those who are wise. Spend lots of time with those who are wise. Right? These are the people, he says, go after them. Chase them down. Knock on their door. Right? Initiate friendships with them. So if you wish that, I just wish that I would have more wise people in my life, guess what? You have to chase them down. About a decade ago, there's a guy, I started reading a lot of his books. His name's Larry. Started reading a lot of his books, started listening to podcasts where he'd be interviewed, started listening to some of his teaching. I'm like, this guy has probably more wisdom than almost anybody I've heard of. He just oozes it every time he talks. And more than just a life experience, there's something about him. So I went and searched down and finally tracked down an email to an assistant, and I sent that assistant a message, and I said, hey, I would love to get 15 minutes of Larry's time. He lives in San Diego. I'll make some time to go to San Diego, right? I'll take a trip there if I could get some of his time. And Larry connected back with me and said, hey, he said, if you want to come and spend some time, I'll give you some time, and you can throw out some questions, and we can discuss and talk. Well, that just began a series over the years of connections that I made with Larry, just tracking him down, using his wisdom. At least twice a year right now, I spend several days with Larry. And all I do is just sit there and write, and I ask a bunch of questions. The thing is, people who are wise, they're people who are able to identify healthy patterns in relationships, finances, right, career, all sorts of different areas. And so when they're making decisions, what they do is they take those patterns into account, and they're thinking about the future. Now, obviously, there is a difference between wisdom and knowledge, right? Because you can have knowledge in one area, but not knowledge in another, and that's fine. The thing about wise people is they know where they don't have knowledge, and they seek to learn, and they seek to grow, and they seek to understand. We can't be knowledgeable in every area of life, but if we're wise, we know that. And so wise people are humble, and they're teachable. This is why Solomon writes, instruct the wise, and they will be even wiser. Teach the righteous, and they will learn even more. Wise person always wants to grow, right? Lots of people ignore reality. Wise people embrace it, right? So if you have a wife who's crying a lot and she's been mysteriously silent for a while, spends a few hours every week cleaning her guns, looking at you from different angles, guess what? Things aren't probably going well. A wise person embraces reality. A wise person is marked by words like humble and teachable and responsible. They're always seeking to grow, always seeking to understand. They welcome feedback and correction. And these are the people we should be seeking out and walking alongside. Another group of people that Solomon writes about is foolish people, right? And when it comes to foolish people, he advises us limit time with those who are fools. Limit time with those who are fools. Now, I know this word fool sounds really harsh, right? Really judgmental. But we have to realize that there's a big difference between being judgmental and having good judgment. Right? Being judgmental means I'm going to elevate myself above you. I see myself better than you because of the choices I make. But that's not what this is. This is just using good judgment, saying, I know where I want to head in life, and so I'm surrounding myself with people moving in the same direction. The thing about a fool is they don't think much about where they're headed in life. And Solomon warns us, if we are a companion to a fool, we're going to suffer harm. We need to limit our time. And a fool, it's sometimes harder to spot a fool because a fool can be really smart, right? They can have lots of intellect, but they don't have the humility to learn. Solomon writes, fools despise wisdom and discipline. So when you're dealing with a fool, all they want to do is argue. Come on, the internet does not help this, right? I'm almost positive that internet is the Greek word for foolish, right? And when someone is foolish, you cannot teach them anything. Several years ago, I started spending more and more time with an individual and hanging out with them, and I was thinking, man, just based on our personalities, I think this is a great friendships that's evolving here. But the more time I spent with them, the more I realized everything that was discussed had to turn into some sort of debate. And they weren't just debating me, they would just debate anybody and everything. They always were the know-it-all, and I had to just start distancing myself from them. Fools don't want wisdom. Fools don't like discipline. They don't like order. They don't like responsibility. They don't like habits. They're always looking for some sort of get-rich-quick scheme, right? They're looking for a shortcut. And the primary way that foolish people learn is through painful consequences. A wise person does their best to learn from the mistake of others. A foolish person always has to learn through their own mistakes. So they're not going to learn about money until they've lost all their money. They're not going to go to a marriage counselor until their spouse has left. They don't read a parenting book until their kids have a full-blown meth lab in the basement, right? Now, just to be fair and just to be graceful here, I do realize that we all have had moments in our life, and we've even probably had seasons in our life where we've just been foolish. We made foolish decisions. But Solomon, what he's doing is he's warning us to spend limited time with people in those seasons, but more specifically, spend limited time with people who have a pattern of making foolish decisions in their life. We all make foolish decisions. But he says, if this is a pattern in someone's life, you have to limit your time with them. A fool is going to be marked by words like proud and unteachable and selfish and irresponsible. They don't ever want to change. Oh, but they want you to change. They're always going to reject feedback and correction, right? You're the messenger, you're giving them some information, they want to shoot the messenger. And so we have to choose to limit our time with those who are fools. And you'd think it'd be easy to do. Well, they're fools. No, it's hard to do. Because fools are very fun to hang out with. Right? Fools are all about having a good time. They don't have to think about responsibility. They don't have to think about costs. They don't have to think about consequences. Who cares? So the thing about foolish people is they are really, really fun to be around, but we don't respect them. We wouldn't hire them. We won't want to marry them. We won't want our kids to marry them. We won't want to ask them for advice. They are fun, but they're really irresponsible. And what they do is they look for a responsible person so they can back up their truck of responsibilities and dump it all onto them. Guys, I hope this does not sound too cruel, but I have seen a lot of good kids evolve into fools because their parents enabled their behavior. All right? Mom, did you pay my bills? Mom, can you do my laundry? Can I drive your car? Can I live in your house? Mom, can you take the crust off my peanut butter and jelly sandwich? I know I'm 37 years old, but Mom, help me. Guys, if you have an adult child living in your house and they don't have a job and they're not going to school and they become a fool and they refuse to move out, I suggest doing something about it. I suggest going down in the basement, unplugging the computer, unplugging the video game, taser them, and then drag their body outside. Now, you're not going to kill them. Just pray about it, right? Just bring them outside and just say, hey, now you're no longer in my house. Now, on the flip side, you know this. Some of us need to have conversations with our parents, and we need to put up boundaries with them because they're taking advantage of us. So this can go both ways. Obviously, I'm being lighthearted, but this is such a serious issue. All right, final group of people that Solomon writes about is a group of people that he refers to as evil. When it comes to evil people, we need to learn how to protect time from those who are evil. Foolish people, they're inadvertently going to cause us problems because they're irresponsible. Evil people intentionally cause problems. They're finding ways to create pain and hurt. And oftentimes, here's some empathy behind it, right? It's because they've experienced hurt in their life and now they feel justified doing it to someone else. And they are scary to be around and they are dangerous to be around. So we have to learn how to put up boundaries. And this can be very, very difficult because sometimes the evil people are in our family or extended family. And so we're having to navigate all sorts of relational issues. But if we do not learn to put up boundaries, guess what? Evil people will torment us. Solomon is very straightforward. He says this. He says, wisdom will save you from evil people, from those whose words are twisted. These men turn from the right way to walk down dark paths. They take pleasure in doing wrong, and they enjoy the twisted ways of evil. Their actions are crooked, and their ways are wrong. Evil, dark, twisted, wrong, crooked. Very dramatic words. You would think evil people would be very easy to stay away from, but often that's not the case because often just the human side of us, we want to be the hero and save the evil person. Nobody else can save them, but we can. We see this in romantic relationships all the time, right? Where someone is drowning based on their own decisions and they're being destructive and they're hurting people. And so the hero wants to come in and be the lifeguard and say, I want to save you. But they don't want to be saved. They don't want a lifeguard. They want to bring you in with them. So it's very, very, very dangerous to be around an evil person. They're marked by words like danger, all right? Dangerous and entitled and threatening and bitter and selfish and hurtful. Are you saying we shouldn't have any kind of relationship with an evil person? No, I'm saying we should have a professional relationship. You're going to need to talk to my attorney, right? You're going to need to see a therapist. I'm sorry, you're going to have to talk to a professional. And the thing about evil people is they are not beyond help. They're just beyond our help. They need God, and they need a professional who can help them. Do not lie to yourself and convince yourself that you can help an evil person. You just can't. And an evil person isn't always toxic in the way that we imagine it. I know an evil person. They do not attend Great Lakes Church, but I know an evil person who has destroyed multiple marriages because they're constantly preying on the opposite sex, and they have no regard for a marriage relationship. Solomon writes about these three kinds of people: the wise, the fool, and the evil person. And what my hope is that we can look at our circle of closest friends and that we can quickly label and identify the people in that group very quickly. And when we label them, if we see people that we're like, man, based on just the decisions over and over, they would be foolish, or someone that might even be evil, we need to take action. Because the thing about friendships is we let our guards down. And if we let our guards down with the wrong people, guess what? There's going to be lots of consequences. I just want to take the final few minutes we have, and I just want to get uber practical. And what I want to do is I just want to show you a list of different types of relationship dynamics and then the kind of relationships that play out, all right? When a wise person gets together with another wise person, that's called a healthy relationship, which is why these are the relationships we should pursue. These are the life-giving relationships. These are the rewarding and beneficial friendships. We get together, we learn, we grow, we're moving towards a better and more mature life. And it's not like every time we get together, it's like, oh, we're just talking about what are your goals and where are you headed in life. It's not like that. It's just they're fun to be around, they're life-giving, and it's just obvious that our values are similar and our character, we're all concerned about character and we're moving in a direction. That's when a wise person gets together with a wise person, it's healthy. When a wise person gets together with a foolish person, that's called a parental relationship. It's a mentoring relationship, right? Because the wise person's always having to tend to and look after the foolish person, like a parent would have to look after a child. And if you're wise, you do not want to be close friends with a foolish person, because friends who are not careful with their life certainly will not be careful with yours. Now, when a wise person gets together with an evil person, right, that needs to be a distant relationship. So that needs to be a professional relationship. And that's not easy, but it's boundaries, right? Nope, sorry, can't come to my house. Nope, I'm not going to give you my phone number. Nope, you're not going to date my daughter. Nope, we're not going to go into business together. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to give you any money. And you have to actively work at keeping a distance, because evil people want to latch on to wise people because they want to hurt people. They're hurting, they want other people to hurt. Now, when a foolish person gets together with another foolish person, that's called a codependent relationship. Right? These are two people who are always getting together and they're drinking together. They're doing drugs together. They're committing crimes together. These are two people who are creating havoc together whenever they connect. Right? They're just foolish. They enable one another. When a foolish person gets together with an evil person, that would result in some sort of abusive relationship. And the reason why is because evil people want to take advantage of foolish people. Foolish people just tend to be naive. They don't really have a clue of where they're headed in life. They're not paying much attention to the relationship. But evil people, they're calculated. They're dangerous. And so it's going to end up in some sort of abusive relation, abusive marriage, abusive friendship, abusive work environment. So we've got to be very careful the kind of relationship. And then when an evil person gets together with another evil person, that's a dangerous relationship. This is Bonnie and Clyde, right? These are two people, man, they form an unholy alliance. These are business partners who are just ruthless. These are married couples who, they're just cruel and they're heartless. These are two friends when they get together. All they do is criticize and hurt and demean other people. Very, very dangerous to be around. And so what I want you to hear is when it comes to choosing our friendships, we cannot be passive. We've got to be intentional, even as adults, especially as adults. Because even as adults, our friends determine the direction and quality of our life. We can't be passive. This past week, I had a friend who we've been talking about health, and so they sent me a couple of health videos from a health expert they follow on social media. And when they sent the videos to me, I started watching, and then I Googled the health expert's name, and within 30 seconds, I learned that this health expert has been banned from their own country from providing free or paid health services because of the stuff that they're spewing. So I told this friend of mine, I says, hey, this person is not who you think they are. I would not be listening to their advice. You can't be naive on this, right? Well, a few hours later, I was on my computer because I had to renew my passport. I don't have anywhere that I'm intending to go right now, but I've got just a few months left in my passport, so I wanted to renew it online. And It wasn't until after I had paid the passport fee that I realized I had accidentally used a third-party website that charged $65 for the exact same services the government website would have provided for free. So I had to pay the renewal fee plus the $65. I felt really stupid. I'm like, how did I let my guard down? How was I so naive? I wasn't paying attention. And here's the deal. Listening to someone who's really not a health expert, it might impact us a little bit. Right? Paying an extra $65 for something I could have got for free. Guys, okay, so it's $65. It's not that big of a deal. But if I am careless, and if I let my guard down, in regards to the kind of people I surround myself with, the implications are huge. The shrapnel of their decisions will impact me. The way they live life begins to affect my thinking, begins to affect me and how I'm navigating things. So the wise, foolish, the evil. And all I'm asking is that this week you stop and you just take inventory of the people in the relationship circles closest to you. Who do you need to spend more time with? You just need to move them up the rankings. And who maybe do you spend a little bit less time with, or maybe significantly less time, and you move them down the list? Solomon writes, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. I want people who sharpen me. I have lots of great friends. And many of my friends do not share my faith. But I'll tell you what, those in my closest circle do. I'm not telling you have to do that. I'm just telling you, for me, that's what I do. I mean, think about this, man. Jesus spent lots and lots of times with people who didn't share his faith, right? Lots of time with people who were not believers. But the vast majority of his time, he spent with his 12 disciples. And then even within that group, he had a smaller group, Peter, James, and John, that he was most open with. I want my closest friends to be people who pray for me, who encourage me, and quite honestly, they call me out when they see something in me that doesn't reflect the ways of Jesus. Right? When I have someone who hurts me in a deep way, without a question, it feels good to have friends that say, hey, Dave, we'll help you hide a body. Right? That feels great. But what I really need when someone hurts me is a friend who will say, hey, Dave, if you do not go down the path of forgiveness, this is gonna kill you. And then they challenge me to go down the Jesus path. Right? When I've learned something embarrassing about someone, it feels good to have friends that I can open up and share it with and laugh about it with. But what I really need are some friends who just redirect the gossip or stop it in its tracks. When I'm compromising my character in some way, believe me, it feels good to have friends who just ignore it, don't say anything about it, laugh about it. But what I really need is a friend who will call me out. I've shared before how back in 2017, man, my marriage was at a really, really low point. And during that season, I got a phone call, and it happened to be on my birthday. And I answered it thinking I'm going to get a happy birthday because this is someone I deeply respect. And he said, hey, Dave, I just wanted to call you. I'm waiting for the happy birthday. And they said, because I want to talk to you about your marriage. I heard your marriage is at a low point. And I was like, where'd you hear that? I got defensive real quick. And he explained kind of how he became aware of it. And I was just getting more and more like intense as I'm talking to him. And I said, listen, our church has been going through a tough time. We're down hundreds of people. Giving's down. I'm stressed. I've got a kid out in California. He's getting help for mental health. And I'm going to tell you, it's been a tough season. And I start to get very, very defensive. And he just stops me. He goes, Dave, hold on, pause. He said, I'm just calling you to ask how I can pray for you. He said, I get it. If our church was going through what you were going through, if I have a kid who's living across the country having challenges and dealing with different things, I get it. My marriage would be at a bad point too. I'm just calling to see how I can encourage you. I'm calling to see how I can pray for you. Walk with the wise, become wise. Right? Surround yourself with fools and you're going to experience the shrapnel of their decisions. Get around evil people and they will destroy you because that's what they want to do. So may God give us wisdom. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for relationships. Lord, we thank you for family relationships and relationships between husbands and wives. But we also are so grateful to have friendships in our life, people we can do life with, people who can energize us and challenge us and correct us and offer wisdom and guidance based on life experience and based on their time of being able to recognize and see patterns And Lord, here's what we ask. We ask that you would open our eyes to the people in our life and the people we need to be spending more time with and those that we need to be spending less time with. Lord, help us to be in that group of wise people who walk with other wise people. Give us the courage to make the right decisions in our friendships, knowing that they determine the direction and the quality of our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks for joining us here at Great Lakes Church. Again, my name is Carson, and I'm so glad that you chose to share some time with us this week. We hope something in this talk was meaningful to you, encouraging to you, and maybe even something worth writing down that you can go share with a friend. If you'd like to get involved, maybe join us at one of our physical locations in Southeast Wisconsin, or just be a part of our many other goings-on our social platforms or events in the area. Check out greatlakeschurch.com.